charge you.
All right, I'm going to call this meeting of the Laramie City Council to order. Let the record reflect it is Thursday, March 10th, 2016, and the time is 6 p.m. First item on the agenda is public comments on non-agenda items, or I guess it could be agenda items, it really doesn't matter. Is there anyone that would like, there is a 5-minute time limit, is there anyone who would like to comment before the council at this time? Okay, the next item on the agenda is a special meeting, and I would ask the city clerk to read the special meeting. And you know what, before I do that, I didn't do any assignments. We don't have assignments for these items on here. Councilors, before I open up that special meeting, why don't we do this? Item 2A, who would like to introduce item 2A from the council?
Mr. Vitale has his hand up.
Councilor Vitale? Why don't you do item 2, there's item 2B also.
Remind him that he needs to.
And then item 2,
He needs to announce the mayor and clerk to sign on 2B.
yes, there's one thing you need to add to that. Thank you for telling me that. When you read that item, you're going to have to add to the end of it and have the mayor and clerk sign for item 2B. Councilor Vitale.
On both of them?
I was only told on the item 2B.
2B?
City clerk?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, it is written in the motion on 2A, but on 2B, it just says the mayor, have the mayor to sign. If you would please add "and clerk." Thank you.
Okay.
Left out.
I did.
Okay, 26, 24,
So,
okay.
item number 2C, who would like to introduce that? Councilor Somerville. Okay, item 2D, who would like to do that? This is the community partners deliberation.
That's fine.
Brian, shoot. And then adjournment, why don't I go to Councilor Shumway?
Okay. Klaus shows up, do you want to move it to him?
Klaus will not be here tonight, I know that for certain.
He won't land until 7 o'clock.
I do not know where the other two
I'll do it.
councilors are. Okay, I think that takes care of the housekeeping. So, next item on the agenda, item number 2 is a special meeting, as I had stated. City Clerk, would you read the notice, please?
Notice is hereby given that a special meeting of the Laramie City Council will be held Thursday, March 10, 2016, 6 p.m. in council chambers of City Hall, 406 Ivanson Street for the following purposes. Number 1, Bright Agrotech Business Ready Community Grant Application. 2, Engagement Agreement for Specialized Legal Services. 3, Community Partners Deliberation.
Thank you. And City Clerk, would you do roll call, please?
Henry. Absent. Shumway.
Here.
Schuster.
Here.
Somerville.
Here.
Vitale.
Here.
Weaver, absent. Pierce.
Here.
Pelikas.
Here.
And Hanson, absent. That is 6 present, Your Honor, 3
Thank
absent.
you. Okay, next item is item 2A, Councilor Vitale.
Okay. I move that the council support resolution 2016-24, authorizing the submittal of business-ready communities, BRC, business committed grant and loan applications to support the growth of Bright Agrotech in Laramie, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
Thank you. There's a motion and a second by Councilor Schuster. Ms. Rees.
Honorable Mayor, Council, the impetus of this application was the graduation of Bright Agrotech from the incubator system in May 2015. Before graduating from the system, Bright Agrotech reached out to the Laramie Chamber Business Alliance in an effort to help locate a facility that could satisfy their pretty unique needs, which is a hybrid of high-tech office space, warehouse space, light manufacturing, and warehousing. After a thorough review of locally available properties and developable sites, they realized that there's really nothing available for them except for a lot within the Laramie River Business Park. And at that point, they started to explore a business-ready community grant and loan. And then starting probably about late summer, or late spring, early summer of last year, I started meeting with Bright Agritech along with our regional director to the Wyoming Business Council to explore and devise an application. So this has been really close to a year in the making. We are here tonight with a grant request of $2,685,000 and a loan of $209,250. Both are to the Wyoming Business Council. Bright Agritech, when I started meeting with them, had a local workforce of, I believe, about 17 workers. Today, they are at 29 workers. And in 3 years, they hope to have a local workforce of about 60 employees. So I am happy to answer any questions about this resolution. I also have Dan Furphy with the Laramie Chamber Business Alliance, and of course representatives from Bright Agritech here as well.
What's the council's pleasure? Questions, or would you rather also hear from Dan Furphy at this time? Okay, let's just go to questions. Are there any questions for Ms. Rees? There's a minimum wage requirement to meet the
Yes.
grant. Could you just talk about that just a little bit?
Sure. Ideally, the Wyoming Business Council would like to see wages that are at or preferably exceed the median wage for Albany County, which I believe is around $16 right now. Bright Agritech's wages span on the low end from $14 to the high end currently of a little over, well, actually, right under $41 an hour. Of those workers that are making under that median wage for Albany County, that's a very small portion of their workforce. And those workers are hired through an internship to employment pipeline with the University of Wyoming, so that a student can, as they're earning degrees, start getting their feet wet at Bright Agritech, and then hopefully upon graduation ease into a position, and hopefully a higher paying position within the company. These wages have been reviewed by our interim regional director, Heather Tupper, and I think she's pretty comfortable with the range of wages paid by the company.
Good, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you. Mr. Furphy, is there anything you'd like to add?
Honorable Mayor and Council, yes, we've been negotiating very carefully on this project. As I indicated last meeting, it's very exciting, and I like Nate Story's thinking. One of his concerns is, what if I hire so many employees that I outgrow this building very rapidly? Well, that's a problem I'd love to have to deal with, so we'll see. But as the mayor and I met, City Council would be taking very little risk on the loan because our organization is contributing land that's valued right at $700,000. So City Council would have a first mortgage on the building and land to secure the $200,000 debt. And I know as a banker, I would make that loan. So I'll answer any other questions you might have.
Are there any questions? Thank you very much. And lastly, Mr. Story, is there anything you'd like to add? This is your opportunity.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, City Council. We're really excited about this grant, and as you know, we've been growing in Laramie for some time, and we're looking forward to growing in Laramie for a lot longer. And certainly, if you guys have any questions, just let me know. I'm happy to answer them.
Are there any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Any comments from council? What? Yes.
Good luck.
Councilor Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I've seen some of this equipment in action at a family member of mine's residence who uses some of the setups that these guys put together, and I think they're great, and I think it's going to be a growth company and really good for Laramie. So let me also say good luck, good job.
You know, I have friends
Vice
in
Mayor.
I have friends in Fremont County who love this stuff. So and they're using it, and it's on their barn, and it's just crazy. So it's great.
All right. Would anyone from the public wish to comment on this before we go to a vote? City Clerk, could you do roll call, please?
Hanson, absent. Henry.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Vitale.
Yes?
Weaver.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Polikis.
Yes.
That is 8 yeses and 1 absent, Your Honor.
That motion carries. Item number 2B, Councilor Vitale.
I move to approve the PDA between the City of Laramie, Laramie Chamber Business Alliance, and Bright Agrotech to accompany business-ready community, business-committed application to the Wyoming Business Council, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign upon full execution by the Laramie Chamber Business Alliance and Bright Agrotech.
And
Second. He said that.
and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
He said
He
that.
did.
It's in
Oh, you
there.
did. I apologize. Second by Councilor Shumway. Ms. Reese.
Honorable Mayor, the project development agreement outlines individual roles and responsibilities with respect to this application and the construction of this project. This PDA contemplates that the City of Laramie will provide full-service construction management along with grant administration through a team approach with Laramie Chamber Business Alliance and Bright Agrotech. The City of Laramie will contribute no funds to this project, but we will make a significant investment in city staff to manage this project. In addition, we will be paying for all construction invoices per Wyoming Business Council requirements, but of course be fully reimbursed by the Wyoming Business Council. The Laramie Chamber Business Alliance will again be a partner through this team approach, and they will provide the in-kind value of the land on which this building will be constructed. The city will own the building during the construction process, and then within, I believe, 30 days of substantial completion, the city will convey the property to LCBA. But at that same time, LCBA will mortgage the property to the city so that we may be guaranteed that we can repay the loan to the Wyoming Business Council. The loan will be paid for through lease payments by Bright Agrotech to LCBA. LCBA will, of course, transfer those funds to the city so that we may satisfy our loan to the Wyoming Business Council. We understand that the loan will be less than 2% interest rate for a 10-year period. I believe your council cover memo says 20 years. I spoke with our regional director, and we brought that down to a 10-year period because Bright Agrotech is entering into a lease purchase agreement with LCBA, through which they plan to possibly purchase the building in year 10. So it made sense that the loan period also matched that lease purchase period. Let me see. Upon satisfaction of the loan, LCBA will collect all lease revenue and reinvest those proceeds into economic development projects and opportunities. They will reinvest, 80% of lease proceeds into economic development and retain 20% for operations. Then, upon the sale of the building, they will keep 50% for economic development and then return 25% to the Wyoming Business Council. Let me see.
Who gets the other 25?
I need a pie chart here. 25% will go toward projects within the Sear Sky Technology Park. Thank you. What you have before you is a draft project development agreement. The final agreement does not change significantly from what you have attached here. But what you don't have are the attachments. Dan Furphy is here, and he can answer any questions you might have over the attachments. Attachment A is the lease purchase agreement. We have reviewed that, but we have not seen the final. We understand, though, that the final doesn't change significantly from what we have reviewed. But again, Dan can answer any questions you might have about that. Attachment B is the revenue recapture plan, and it more or less is a couple paragraphs describing that strategy that I just described to you and that is in your agenda cover memo. It is also lacking a preliminary building design, and this again is a very preliminary building design. It stands to change significantly, but what will not change is the bottom line cost and the final budget. The final budget for this project is $3.5 million. That will not change. And then lastly, it's missing Bright Agrotech's job and wage chart, and then an operation and maintenance plan. Again, Dan can answer any questions you might have, but if you do have any about the PDA, please do let me know.
Councilor Henry?
So what zone is this building going to be in?
I believe it's light manufacturing. If you hold on 1 minute, I can find that zone
Okay.
within the application.
Would anyone from staff know the answer to that?
Steph, I'm going to let Sarah, Council, I'm going to let Sarah confirm, but I believe it is LM. It's the lot on Venture Drive. I guess kind of kitty corner to the current high-vis building. In fact, those lots abut, I think, in the back of the
Yes, they
lot
do. They're doing
space
soil
on the
samples there
non-street
currently.
frontage. Yeah, so kind of as the crow flies.
So then my next question was going to be that the building does adhere to the building regulations for that
Yes.
zone.
Yeah, and in fact, that's why, in part, this site appealed to Bright Agrotech. And to be clear, our planning department is aware of this project and has agreed that their uses will fit within the site. In addition, the PDA requires that whatever is built is a code-compliant building.
Good. So they won't be asking for any variances or?
It's not the intention at this time. It doesn't seem necessary at this time.
City manager.
Council, I have to apologize, I just had a total brain moment here. The lot I just described to you is the tungsten lot. My brain is in the wrong project. The project that you are discussing for Bright Agritech is actually the lot adjacent to what we often refer to as the Well Dog building, which is now owned by the new Well Dog. So Bright Agritech has been actually sited on that lot for some period of time, even back when, so this lot is north of the Well Dog building. Yeah.
I think so, yeah.
So now that I have probably confused you as.
Near the
as
Allsop
myself.
building then too.
Yeah, so it is east of the Allsop building, and it is north of the Well Dog building. And Bright Agro's been on that lot for some period of time with some limited operations, even going back to when the city owned the Well Dog building.
Right, so then the building that will be built there will be similar in appearance to the other buildings? I just want to make sure that we're not going to ask for variance and
Yeah, absolutely. I think that Mr.
to fit the
Story,
cost, you know.
Mr. Story can certainly speak to this, but they intend for this building to very much match their corporate spirit and their, I guess, kind of high-tech aspirations. I think that what they envision is a perfect fit for the area, and I did just confirm that this is light manufacturing.
Okay, good, thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Councilor Somerville.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. So I have a question on clarification of how the proceeds will be used after the sale of the building.
Okay.
Because the cover sheet that I have here says that 50% will go to economic development projects within the Sierra Sky Tech Park. And then 25% to operations, but it doesn't specify what operations. And then 25% return to the Wyoming Business Council. So my
That
question
is missing 25%.
no, everything's
Well, yeah.
there, but it's a little bit different
Oh.
than what you described. So it's 50% to projects specifically within Sierra Sky, and then 25% to operations. And my question is, what operations?
LCBA operations.
Are those limited to only economic development operations, or is it carte blanche, whatever LCBA wants to use it for?
I think the expectation of the Wyoming Business Council would be that they would be restricted just for economic development operations. In other words, they would not be used for chamber uses.
Can I
And
follow?
the PDA does ask that these proceeds be accounted for separately, so that LCBA should have a sort of a clear and succinct trail of where the lease proceeds are going to, and then how they are reinvesting those proceeds.
Okay. Well, I don't have any problems with them being used for economic development operations, but my concern is that maybe I missed it in reading the draft agreement that we had, but it didn't seem to be very specific for that 25% of operations. So I have a concern with that we need to be more specific in the agreement, that 25% of operations needs to be only for economic development activity. I don't think we can use proceeds for chamber business or chamber functions.
City manager.
Mayor and Councilmember Somerville, I believe that you are correct, and I would go a step further. Sarah alludes to the expectations of the Business Council. To be clear, the expectations of the Business Council on how recapture funds are used by any entity, cities, counties, LCBA, those are laid out very clearly in rules promulgated by the Wyoming Business Council. I do not believe using recapture funds for chamber activities would be permissible under the rules of the Wyoming Business Council, and please correct me if you see it any differently. So.
I don't, no.
Can I have one more follow-up?
Please do.
here? Sorry. So the concern I have is that if we don't sell this building for 10 years, and the rules and reporting rules, or the loan is done with the Business Council, and we're no longer technically under the guise of having to follow the Business Council rules, my concern would be that the argument could be made that we don't have to invest that 25% or restrict LCBA to using that 25% for economic development activity. The case could be made that since we're done with all that Business Council stuff, we don't have to follow those rules. So I would be much more comfortable if in this agreement it was specified that those 25% for operations would be used for economic development only.
So the revenue recapture plan is unfortunately not included in council packets, but it is an attachment to this agreement. I believe that revenue recapture plan does direct those funds only to the economic development side of their operations and not the chamber side.
Even for the sale of the building, because I know in the lease payments it's set out a little differently and it seems to be more specific, but on the sale of the building as well?
I don't know that it is for the sale, and I don't know, honestly, that that would be a requirement of the business council, but it's certainly something that we can look into and amend as needed, or,
Mayor, if I could add, Jason and I were just talking as Sarah was describing that to you, and I would maybe draw your attention to page 6 of 22 of the draft PDA. And the last paragraph there, the revenue recapture plan is alluded to, and if it's the will of the council, I don't think it would be a difficult matter to add just some language noting that the expectation of the city, if you all agree that that is your expectation, would be to require through the life of any recapture funds that they be used solely for economic development purposes, even beyond the reporting period of the Wyoming Business Council, or something to that effect. You agree, Jason?
Yeah.
So that's simple if that's where you'd like to go.
Sure, maybe. Okay. That would certainly make me a little bit more comfortable with this, but we'll see what everybody else thinks. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor,
No, my question was answered.
Councilor Vitale.
Relative to the recapture loan and putting this clause in there now to restrict that money, what are the conditions of the loan through the business council? Aren't there restrictions in there how this money can be used? Which I would imagine will go to economic development, but
yes, the monies are restricted for economic development. In addition, the amount that you may recapture for operations is restricted. I believe that the Laramie Chamber Business Alliance has met the Business Council's standard requirement for.
they would review that anyway before they vote on the loan, wouldn't they?
Absolutely, yeah.
And I guess, is operation so ambiguous that the definition of it can't be stretched into economic development in some situations?
I'm sorry, I don't
It is an
understand.
economic development project, right?
This isn't, yes, this
Yeah.
isn't.
And
I
so
think,
maybe-
I think the intention of the Wyoming Business Council is that only a small portion of those proceeds are used for, say, copier paper. The majority of their proceeds, they want to see recirculated into our community and into the state.
Well,
So,
I
so-
think that recaptured outline in there, as it progresses over 10 years, really shows a commitment to roll that money back into economic development. In reading that, I think it's all implied and pretty well stated. I don't know if that would be a duplication to reinforce and say it only can be used for economic development. Well, to have economic development, you have to have some operating expenses to promote it and initiate it and manage it. I mean,
and in this case, 25% of those proceeds will be for
for that.
operations, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Ms. Reese? Councilor Henry?
So do we need a motion to include language, what Councilor Somerville brought up about for the lifetime of the whatever that we talked about? And also, I have a second question, and that is, how come we don't have the attachments? Are they just not ready, or is there a time
We just
factor? I mean, can we postpone this till we can see the attachments?
The attachments came our way too late in the game to provide to
Okay.
council. Certainly, we can provide those attachments. I don't think that the attachments, I think the agenda cover covers, I think, the majority of what the attachments address, but certainly we can provide those to council if that would help in a decision. And Dan is also here to walk council through particularly the lease purchase agreement.
So then do we need a motion? That was my question.
Do we need a motion? Let me go to the city manager, or to the city attorney, whichever one.
You could do it two ways, Mayor and Council. You could have a motion to direct staff to make the changes that reflect your will, or you could make a motion with specific language if you wanted to get specific.
Councilor Henry, does that help?
Yes, so I would like to make a motion to, but we can't because we have a motion on the floor, right?
Amendment to the motion.
An amendment to the motion that directs staff to include language that says the recapture funds,
And sale funds for operations will be used for economic development.
and help me out, city attorney, please, I need help with the amendment. To make sure that what has been discussed, that the recapture funds and the sales funds go through the lifetime of not the loan, because it's over in 10 years, so.
It would be the recapture funds for the lease,
Net proceeds upon sale.
right, or the sale, right? It'd be the lease and the sale where the proceeds would come from.
Yeah. I would agree with the city attorney. I think you're looking for something, if I'm hearing you right, that says, throughout the life of the recapture funds, they shall be accounted for separately and used only for economic development purposes.
Yes,
Something
yes.
like that?
Right,
Yes,
yeah.
Second.
The sale.
thank you.
Okay, there's a motion and a second. I've seen Dan Furphy's hand up, Mr. Furphy, and let's hear some comments from him as to his opinion.
My concern with any changes in the documents are that we are in a really tight time frame with Wyoming Business Council. That's why everything has been last minute. We are planning to drive these documents to the Business Council tomorrow and hand deliver the documents to them. So this change, and I understand the concern, but it's clearly in all of the Wyoming Business Council regulations and in our recapture agreement that any recaptured funds will be used for economic development. It won't be used for anything other than that. Yes, Councilman Vitale is right. We will use some of those funds to help operate our organization, but we clearly do separate accounting, so we know where economic development funds are going. We open separate accounts for any of the lease proceeds we get off of these projects, so we track them individually. And yes, we are prepared to provide reports to the Wyoming Business Council showing where this money goes to. So my concern is a change in the project development agreement now that would need to be approved by all three attorneys again, would postpone that. But I understand your concern, and it's clearly expressed, and so.
Okay, let's see. Questions? Let's go to Councilor Vitale, and then just hang at the podium, Mr. Furphy.
Yeah, I find it interesting, we're now going to micromanage an economic development project, of which 7 years I've been on council, and how many business-ready grants have we applied for and received, and we've never had to put in special language to see that that money is going to economic development. My question would be to our senior staff members, has this been through our staff review, city manager, city attorney, planning department? and everybody has been in agreement to what's in this original document, which seems to be very consistent with other grant applications for tungsten and for all the other ones, high-vis and everybody else. We do not have prejudicial language, for this company, and I think it's pretty clear how that money's going to be recaptured, roll over, and we're going to try and tie hands 10 years from now, which I don't think is right. And if we've had all the administrative reviews and everybody has signed off, I think it would be appropriate to rescind the motion and vote on the main motion.
Was there a question in there for staff?
Yeah, they answered it, that there was a administrative review on this whole thing, and everybody's in.
We did not hear an answer.
They shook their heads.
They shook their head.
Oh, that's the answer.
Yeah, let the record.
So the shaking of the heads is on the record.
There's a rattle.
City staff.
Mayor and council, obviously, we have vetted it at the administrative level, but, that doesn't mean you can't change it, I guess. But yes, we have endorsed the draft in front of you.
Thank you for that clarification. Councilor Schuster.
Mine's a comment. You can sit down if you'd like to.
Well, that'll work too. You can always come back out. Councilor Schuster.
Just like we have been said, we have done this. It has went through our attorney, it's went through their attorney, and it's went through their attorney. And we've all approved it. And it's went over to Cheyenne already. To think that they haven't seen this over there or agreed on everything on this is comical. What we're doing right now is we're trying to micromanage the project. We don't need to be doing this. To think we're gonna outfox these three attorneys is just comical. We do not need this at all.
Thank you.
Counselor, I couldn't have said it any better.
Councilor Vitale, you don't
I
need.
know I'm out of order, excuse me.
Thank you. Councilor Somerville.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to make it clear, my concerns are not that the money would be used. I think it's fine to use the operations money for a piece of the salary and whatever else that's in economic development. But I think because we're dealing with a fairly unique organization where our chamber activities are combined with our economic development activities, the city can't, in my opinion, be using these kind of dollars to support chamber business activities. That's not what these projects are for. So my concern is that we're not delineating enough of a line between where the money can go. I certainly understand operations costs and salaries and administrative costs for all the economic development stuff and everything that LCPA does economically. I just want to make sure that that doesn't slide over into hosting business after hours or staff time for other stuff or other things that the LCPA does. That's just my concern, and I just thought it was a little vague. I could certainly be persuaded that staff and that they really think that there's enough delineation there that in 10 years, we're not going to have an argument that the 25% of operations costs, can be used for whatever. We don't want it to be used for whatever. We want it to be used for economic development. That's the point of these projects.
Thank you. Any further comments? I'd like to weigh in on this. I think what the motion addresses is upon the sale of the building, there will be a sum of money. Some of it gets returned to the state, and some of it will be in the hands of the alliance. It is not defined at the present time whether that money has any kind of restrictions on it, such as it has through the life of the loan and the life of the lease. Councilor Somerville is very accurate when she says that there is a blending of all the revenue for economic development and for the chamber, and there's also a blending of the expenses. To ensure that those dollars are spent on economic development and not blended in any way, or put in such a way that less money is blended from economic development to the chamber or the vice versa, it makes sense to do something along this line. I also appreciate what Mr. Furphy has said is that this is kind of the 11th hour, and to try to change the contract now and so forth and so on would be very difficult. So I guess I would ask our city attorney, is there a way that we could address this in such a way that we do not have to change the contract, but we can have our wishes, if you will?
Mayor, council, I think what the motion is doing is kind of already restating what the Wyoming Business Council rules are. So, it's clarifying it, I'd agree with that, but, I mean, the rules are already in place to restrict these recapture funds to economic development. As far as getting into the LCBA's, like, inner workings, I don't know how we would do that. I would suggest, I think coming up in the near future is LCBA will be asking for some money from the city council, and it might be a better idea to address it at that time, and at that maybe make a request of them to make sure they keep their books separate and make sure the two arms of the organization have a wall between them, if you will, I guess, maintaining separate accounting and whatnot. But as far as this project goes, yeah, I think the rules are already in place that do restrict that money to economic development.
Thank you. Counselor Somerville?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just to clarify with the city attorney, the rules will restrict the recapture funds to the lease payment, but once that's done, there's a certain time limit on how long the Wyoming Business Council requires rules reporting. And if they sell the building at 10 years, what I'm not concerned about is I think the recapture lease payments are fine, but the sale of the building, where they specifically outline 25% for operations, that's probably not going to fall under the Wyoming Business Council rules. So right now, we don't have anything that says that they can only use that money for economic development. That's what I'm concerned about.
Right.
So could we potentially address that with an addendum to come forward at another meeting?
Yeah, you know what, I think that could be addressed with a separate agreement they have through them. I don't think it needs to necessarily be addressed through each specific project that you work on.
Okay.
Like, Bright Agrotech is probably sitting there going, we don't care. So, yeah, I mean, that's what's complicating things, I think, is that's really an issue between the city and the
LCBA.
LCB. I can never get the acronym right, so. So yeah, having Bright Agrotech as a party to that probably isn't necessarily that.
Thank you. Counselor Somerville?
With that being said, just to follow up, I would be comfortable as long as the intent of the council is carried through on the LCBA contract agreement, because I think that's what's coming up is the economic development agreement with LCBA. If in part of that agreement, and maybe if Dan Furphy would step up and address whether that would be acceptable to them, to address these projects, this money, even on the sale, we expect them to be used for economic development only, and maybe that would be a better way to address this than change the Bright Agrotech agreement.
Your Honor, and I apologize to my fellow council member, I think we're getting a little off topic. I think we're veering towards
'cause we're not
policy
even talking
between the
about
city and the Chamber Alliance and a specific agreement.
No, I would disagree with this.
We're
And I would
talking about the amendment. This is not.
I'm talking about the amendment. Okay, and the reason I would disagree with this, and I believe we should continue it, is because the amendment addresses the future funding or the future source of that sale, and the suggestion has been made by our city attorney as an alternative to that amendment, voting down the amendment, and the alternative would be that it could be addressed as part of our agreement with the Chamber Alliance concerning the large sum of money that we provide them every year. So I believe this is on topic and on the amendment. Mr. Furphy?
Yes, Honorable Mayor and council members, as the mayor knows, we have provided separate financial statements for the economic development segment versus the Chamber of Commerce. It's pretty evenly divided, and we it's always a little difficult to allocate salaries. How much of my time am I spending on economic development versus Chamber of Commerce, those kind of things. But I think we've done a pretty fair job. And so we know where the money's going pretty accurately. So I understand the concern. On a separate issue, long-term, we want to have one organization, the Laramie Chamber Business Alliance, that supports businesses in this community. And so it is going to be tough long-term to separate those two. That was part of my job, is to merge the two into one organization. And so I want to do that. And I understand the city's concern. We have a fee-for-service agreement with the city for economic development, and that's what we're focused on, and that's what we use the city's funds for. So
I think specifically what the question was this part of our fee-for-service? Can this amendment be discussed at that time?
I would highly recommend that.
Thank you. That was the on-topic that I believed was on topic. Thank you. Councilor Vitale.
Yeah, I'm not going to support the amendment because I think we're getting into a prejudicial and a discriminatory situation. No other business-ready grant or business that has come into this town that I can remember has been subject to this scrutiny. And I think there has been all the review by all the necessary people. I think the grant itself is very well stipulated as to the recaptured money, which is also everybody else has had to follow. And now to single out this one company that they're going to have special conditions and become under the microscope on how they exercise their responsibility with this grant, I think is a dangerous precedent to set. And unless we pass this as it is, and then if you want to make an amendment that all other future grants or so forth have this condition, which is already implied in here, and I'm not so sure that most grants generally allow you to charge a certain percent. A lot of them I've been familiar with, at least up to 10% for administrative cost. So there is a cost in the exercising and putting these grants into place. I think we're singling out one company, and I just think it's prejudicial and discriminatory, and nobody else has had this requirement, even going back to basic beginnings, which was done by a previous council some time ago. And so I would strongly urge we pass this grant on the merits of it, which is consistent with all the other companies and so forth that we have done. And if you want to make an amendment to the process, make it after, but not at the expense of these people.
Thank you. Any further discussions by council on the amendment? Councilor Shumway. I'm sorry.
It's my understanding that what we have before us is a draft that has just a few highlighted yellow marks for some insignificant changes. I don't think I'm going to support the amendment, because if we do, I think we're going to have a review of all three attorneys, and from what I understand, this has to be walked over to Cheyenne tomorrow. And in order to expedite this, I don't have a problem with what's in place. It seems like there's safeguards already there, and we've already had an agreement among us that will work out details on the recaptured funds for another discussion. So I'm in favor of passing this as the draft, because I think the draft will go away as it becomes the document that goes to the Wyoming Business Council, and those highlights, I think, have already been reviewed by all three attorneys, so I'm in favor of the overall agreement. I don't want to make any changes that would have to have review by the attorneys to, and I don't think it would be fair to the Bright Agritech or the LCBA to do this, or even our city attorney who would stay up all night doing it. But I think it's just time to do this. I wish that we had had more time. We have been talking about this for a long time, but these documents come very quickly. And, as it was said, some of the supporting documents did not arrive in time for even us to have a copy of it. So I don't have any reason to doubt that things are not on the up and up. I'm sure they are, and so I'm going to say yes on this, and hopefully it'll get over there in time for everything to go smoothly tomorrow.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
So, just to be clear, this has nothing to do with Bright Agritech, nothing. Fully supportive of the operation, the process. This simply has to do with drawing a bright line as opposed to a muddy line or a muddy water situation between our agreement with the Laramie Chamber Business Alliance and what they do with the funds after the sale of the property, 10 years down the road, right? That's my understanding, and right.
City Attorney? Is that correct?
Yes, Mayor and Council, that's correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
So, given the fact that we always get these documents or don't get these documents, please understand that a few of us find it relatively upsetting to not be given the documents, last minute things, stuff like that, because we are always in this position, it seems. And it's probably nobody's fault because things get busy and last minute this, that, and attorneys and life and stuff. But when we have to okay, it would be great to have read this, right? So, having said that, the other thing I guess I'd just like to conclude with is when it comes to that agreement with the Laramie Chamber Business Alliance, we will for sure have this discussion. And unfortunately, Dan Furphy did not really give us a yay or nay on our concerns. I mean, he just, unless I missed that as well. So can we anticipate a positive response to our concerns related to those funds when it comes to our fee agreement?
Mr. Furphy?
Honorable Mayor and Council. Council peers, the funds will be used for economic development, clearly used for economic development. Our strategy is for the recaptured funds, first of all, anything that we recapture will be used to retire the debt first, and hopefully retire it early than its normal maturity. Secondly, our organization is taking on a big commitment with Sierra Sky Technology Park. We know that a huge amount of infrastructure still needs to go into the park. So, as we indicated, we are already pinning ourselves down to 25% of that money going to Sierra Sky and leaving some for operations. But honestly, we are committed to using all of those funds to Sierra Sky Park. But to tie yourselves to that and no leeway at all is not logical. So that's why we left some for term operations. We're not funding our true operations, salary expenses, et cetera, out of those funds. But we want to have some leeway If something comes up that we need to fund and we don't have the money, that might be available, but it definitely will go to economic development. I assure you that.
Thank you.
Counselor Somerville.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Can I ask just one quick question? This is probably for Dan Furphy and for our city attorney. I understand that everything has to be reviewed by the attorneys, and we want to get this over tomorrow. How much of a hassle would it be to literally change in the agreement where it says 25% for operations? Why can't that say 25% for operations related to economic development? Adding 3 words to that agreement would completely change my outlook on how those funds are used, and would clarify that for me, and I would be fine with that.
Mr. Furphy.
Okay. Councilor Somerville, the reason the documents are late, quite honestly, and I don't want to blame them, but we've got 3 attorneys involved. So when you make a change, it has to go to our attorney, Greg Weiss. Greg Weiss has to review it carefully. Then it goes to Bright Agritech's attorney, Mario. Mario has to review it. When the 2 of those attorneys agree to the language, then it goes to the city attorney. If the city attorney makes any changes, it goes back to all of the other attorneys until they come to a final agreement. So, sorry, but that's the honest truth. That's the hang-up, why it takes so long to get the documents through the process.
I have one more quick follow-up to that. So what we have in front of us is a draft with changes that are coming forward. So when are those changes going to be approved? Because I don't understand why we couldn't add that to the changes that were being approved in the draft to begin with.
Well,
Because we don't have it. We don't have a final agreement right now. All we have is a draft.
the attorneys have all 3 agreed on the final document.
We don't have it.
All right. Does this, I'm not sure this conversation affects the argument for the amendment. It does, it certainly is relevant to the main motion. So why don't we try to get the amendment off the floor and then go to the main motion and continue this conversation if you'd like. Councilor Shumway.
I just want to make sure that I am clear on what this draft document is. This is a document that has a few highlights that have been reviewed by all 3 attorneys and agreed to. So once we as a council accept this draft agreement, it becomes the agreement, and it goes to Cheyenne as presented. Is that correct?
City Attorney.
Sorry, I was talking to the city manager. What was the question?
Well, what we have before us is a draft agreement for the city council. It has some highlights. If we accept this draft agreement, then this is the document that goes to Cheyenne, to the Wyoming Business Council, as the administrative agreement for them to accept.
Correct,
And it has already been reviewed by all 3 attorneys.
correct.
Any changes we make tonight would then have to go back through all the process of attorneys shuffling back and forth, and I'm thinking that attorneys could not accomplish this before it's time to get on the horses and head to Cheyenne.
Yeah, I can't speak for the other 2 attorneys, so.
Okay. Why don't we go to, are there any comments from the public concerning the amendment? We'll get back to the main motion in a few minutes. Yes.
Good evening, my name is Tim Hale. I assume there's some relevancy to what I have to say in respect to, scrutinizing where this money goes and so forth. As I recall, and my memory's a little rusty, years ago, before there was the merger between the LEDC and the Chamber, LEDC was having some problems meeting payroll. And about that same time, they had a $12,000 prime rib dinner.
Any other, city manager?
Mayor and Council Council, Sarah just let me know, I think she's had a quick conversation, that we could deliver this document to the Business Council following your next regular meeting, which is not, unfortunately, is not until April 5th. So I feel obliged to let you know that opportunity exists. They've seen it in substantial form, and I guess what I would caution you with is if major changes were made to this agreement, it could negatively impact the timeline for this grant to be approved by the Business Council and the business to get into their building. But if there are minor issues and there are no substantive, really significantly substantive changes, she's clarified that they would accept this and give you a few weeks to finalize it.
Thank you. City Clerk, would you do roll call, please, on the amendment?
Henry.
Yes.
Shumway.
No.
Hanson, absent. Schuster.
No.
Somerville.
Yes.
Vitale.
No.
Weaver.
No.
Pierce.
No.
Polikis.
No.
That is 2 yeses and 6 nos and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Okay, so the amendment fails. We're back to the main motion. Further discussion from council on the main motion. All right. Any members of the public wish to comment on the main motion? City Clerk, would you do roll call on the main motion?
Weaver. Yes.
Vitale.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Henry.
Yes.
Hanson, absent. Pierce.
Yes.
Polikis.
Yes.
It is 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Okay, that motion carries. On to the next item. Item 2C, Councilor Somerville.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to enter into a fee agreement with Hammer, Rodriguez, Ostrander, and Dignas, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
It's a motion and a second by the Vice Mayor. City Attorney.
Mayor, council, let me change tracks here. John Dingus from the principal partner from that law firm is going to be joining us via Skype here in a moment to answer any specific questions you might have for him. I would start off by saying a few months ago now, I believe, we had a work session and we talked about extraterritorial jurisdiction, and one of the issues that we discussed was the ability to enact ordinances, protect watershed. At that time, your direction to me was to look for consultants that could help us draft ordinances that would protect the watershed area outside of the city limits. I have done some research and vetted this law firm in Denver, which has substantial experience in water law and eminent domain law. Mr. Dingus himself has worked with cities and watershed districts throughout Colorado. He also actually worked with the city of Fargo, which is how I became aware of him before I was with the city, though. So it was I didn't know him personally, but he does come highly recommended. As you can see from my cover sheet, I included the estimate from the law firm on what it would cost to develop these ordinances. As you can see, there's a fairly large range there, which is to be expected. A lot of it's going to have to do with how much research they have to do. City staff and myself would help them as much as we possibly can in that research. However, there is a lot of data to go through. I also note that if you were to enter into this agreement with the law firm, I would anticipate once we did draft the ordinances, there's a good possibility they could be challenged on a couple of different levels, or there's always a possibility of takings claims I did ask Mr. Dingus if his firm would also be willing to help in any potential litigation. He indicated they would. They also do litigation, which is another reason why I thought this firm would be a good fit for this project. Not saying that there's for sure going to be litigation, but it's something I think you should be aware of, and if you do go this route, should budget for. With that, I can answer any questions
Okay.
you might have.
Before we do that, Mr. Dingus,
Yes,
have you been able to hear clearly the podium and the dais right now?
I can hear you.
Okay, this is the first time, I'm the mayor, by the way, and this is the first time we've used Skype. We can see you very well, all of us, because you're on our TV monitors. So I just wanted to make sure everything's working right, and welcome to our city council meeting.
Thank you, sir.
So, questions for our city attorney?
I've got some.
Yes, Vice Mayor.
Okay, so, and this is regarding the fee agreement. It's in the second paragraph, second line, and it says protection ordinance. Do we need to add a S?
Mayor, council, no, I don't think so. I think we don't know if it's going to be, how many ordinances it will be, but I think it's pretty clear that they'll come up with whatever's necessary.
Okay. So
Would you like to ask a question to
I mean-
Mr. Dingus?
is he okay with not having an S there? And it assumes one or more?
We would be fine with that. We look at the term protection ordinance as a project.
Thank you. And then my last question is on number P, and this is, obviously you are from Colorado, but it says the state of Colorado. Do we need to,
That should be changed.
okay. So to the
Thank you.
state of Wyoming.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So we will change that. Thank you, and that's it for me.
Okay. I know some councils have a lot of comments. Before we get into comments, which we'll get in very shortly, are there questions concerning the contract for either our attorney or Mr. Dingus? Yes, Mr.
It's for our attorney.
Schuster.
One of the people that could challenge it will be the state of Wyoming.
Council, Mayor, council, I don't anticipate the state would challenge it. However, there's a distinct possibility the state could simply change the law, so next legislative session.
Other questions? All right, why don't we go to comments? And I know there are some comments that people would like to make. Councilor Vitale.
Yeah, I have about 4 brief ones. I'll be brief with them,
Thank you.
since I wrote them out. The first concern I had on this is when I looked at the advertisement on March 5th, it said engagement agreement for specialized legal services, which I had no idea what that might be, but then when I got the packet, what we're considering is a fee agreement with the 4 principals there in the law firm to assist the city in developing watershed protection ordinances. Now, the advertisement, in my opinion, does not tell the whole truth about the real intent of the meeting tonight. I think there's been a real deception on behalf of the city toward the citizens to reduce the potential landlords from knowing how the city is going to invade their property and quality of life. Number 2, the total cost is estimated between $14,200 and $24,040, which is currently unbudgeted, but it's been recommended that we charge the water budget. Now, if we have a surplus in our water budget, maybe we ought to consider reducing rates. Now, there are throughout this a list of what I consider situations that will require change orders, and change orders always imply increase in cost. On page 1, there is fee agreement contemplates hiring the firm for litigation. I guess if this firm is going to give us ordinances and so on and so forth, and because throughout here, it's implied by our city attorney on the front page and in other areas here by the principal law firm, that we could possibly be getting into a litigation. But they would defend us. My question would be, why would this law firm provide us ordinances that we could be sued on? Why don't they just provide us ordinances that might work and we don't get sued? Now, I guess prudent to the budget for the possibility of defending these ordinances in court. And that's stated in here that we should budget in our upcoming budget enough money to defend us in court. I'm not a lawyer, never been in court defending ordinances and so forth, but I would imagine, just seeing how some of the fees come around, we may be looking at $100,000 to $200,000 to defend our position, of which we don't have budget, and we're facing a budget crisis. Now, and in addition, we have our attorney's costs to attend meetings, conferences, and other proceedings. Those are costs, these are requirements to comply and to assist this law firm, but there will be these additional costs. Also, what caught my eye was the rates for the firm and their staff are subject to change July 1. So the rates that we have in here, depending on when this is, or if it is approved, and I won't support it, I'll be upfront right now about it, I won't support it, that although these rates were locked into, they're telling us that these rates may be approved in July 1, and I'm sure we'll have to come back for an amendment, especially if they've already initiated their process. Page 2, there's a paragraph that talks about additional charges would include, among other items, engineering, geologists, landmen, or other consultants approved by the client, which concerns me, online and access fees for computer database. So this whole paragraph gives a whole list of additional activities where there's going to be additional charges. As you see now, this $24,000 is starting to grow. Number 6, down under paragraph H, also, as we have discussed, the fees and costs relating to this matter are not predictable. That means, you know, there's, that isn't good for us, because things will go up and so on, and we will end up incurring additional costs there. And then in paragraph I, with regards to cost and fees for discovery, the law firm is not now making any estimates. Parties anticipate the matter related to the legal services specified above may be litigated. And then if that occurs, then we'll have to negotiate costs, you know, for our litigation. On page 4 of this, I think that has been addressed when it says that this agreement will be governed by the laws of the state of Colorado. That was kind of disturbing that a major deal like that would not have been proved. But I think that has been addressed and stated it would be changed. And then the other thing that bothered me is this home rule. And I don't know if any of you have read or understand home rule in Wyoming. This is a municipal officials guide. It's put out by the Wyoming Association of Municipalities. So I imagine everybody here would have confidence that they're a pretty legitimate organization. And throughout, basically what Black's Law Dictionary defines home rule, state or constitutional provision or type of legislative action which results in apportioning power between state and local governments by providing local cities and towns with a measure of self-government if such local government accepts terms of the state legislation. And three just quick things here. It grants local governments the power and flexibility to satisfy increasing demands for local services. It permits local governments to determine the kind of government best suited to their needs, and it usually protects local governments from state intervention while protecting the state from the constant pressures of local governments for additional power to respond to new challenges. In other words, home rule is simply put, home rule is a delegation of power from the state to its subunits of government. This is all about the city having power and control over people that live outside the city limits. And then again, there was a deal in here that talked about the statute 15-17-101. Well, there is no 15-17-101. It is 15-7-101. And this is interesting reading as well. And for the sake of time, I won't get into any of that. Lastly, and I think most importantly, this city, again, has missed an opportunity to exercise professional and ethical practices by not inviting the county commissioners to the table to discuss common concerns. And we don't need to hire a law firm. All we need to do is have the professionalism to respect the other legislative body in this county and to sit down with them and discuss water quality, present and future. How can we look at the aquifer protection plan? How can we engage the citizens are affected, bring them into the formula, and look at ways to amend possibly our rules, if we even need to, and come up with a plan, because it's quite obvious that the printout from the CAP network here, the National Groundwater Awareness Week awarded a national award to the county for its groundwater protection program, groundwater stewardship, talks about protection, conservation, and I think it's a pretty prestigious award, and I think when you read the whole thing, that it surely exemplifies how the county commissioners, as well as the residents that depend daily on their septic systems and wells, have done a job in protecting the quality of water. And everybody shakes their head no. Why don't we start talking about the contamination and pollution we're putting in the river every day from surface runoff? That's 40% of our water, and we do nothing about that. We're always worried about the best stewards of the aquifer and trying to punish them, bring down their property values, and reduce their quality of life when there is no evidence that they have done anything except be good stewards. And I know some of you people don't believe that, but maybe we should look at our own house first before we start trying to tell somebody in their house what to do. And that's all at this time I have to say about that. There are a lot of other situations in that agreement that are concerning, but I'll yield, and I have said my initial piece on this.
Thank you for adhering to our 3 minutes.
Well, thank you for letting me have 3 minutes.
We had far more than 3 minutes, Councilor Vitale.
Anybody else have the clock on them?
Mr. Dingus, was there anything within that that you'd like to address?
If you have any questions about the agreement, I'm happy to address them. I really didn't hear a lot of questions in the foregoing. Certainly the commissioner has a position. I would be happy to respond to anything specifically, but in the interest of time, would just move on.
Thank you. I just wanted to give you that opportunity. City Attorney, is there anything before I go to further comments?
No, Your Honor.
Thank you. Other comments from council? Councilor Shumway.
Thank you, Your Honor. There's points that were made by Councilman Vitale that I agree with. And one is that we need to go sit down at the table with not only the county commissioners, but also probably the state of Wyoming, and sit down and find out where we agree and where we disagree. And at the point where we disagree, but there is, an opportunity for us to come to an agreement, then maybe that's the point where we get the EPA involved and the, attorneys general in Cheyenne, and where we get legal advice and things like this. But I think maybe right now, we're looking for, what it would cost for us to have, and I think, the initial is the 24,000, but I don't know that we're ready to have them start doing discovery and this and that and the other until we reach the point where we have determined exactly what, watershed items, protection items, whether we can, looking at other things that our city attorney can find, what we can do about water protection opportunities. So I'm not ready to start, paying the professional attorneys an open-ended fee for everything that they can discover, because believe me, they can discover more than we want to accept. So I think what we need to do is we need to narrow our search down to exactly what we want to do with the county at the table, the city at the table, and the state, whoever we can bring over to the table, with also the EPA to come in and say, these are the areas where you are free to look at, and these are the areas which we're not going to support you, and then go from there. But I think we're bringing in our high-paid attorneys a little bit too early into the game from what I believe that where we are now. We may have reached a point where the city says this is as far as we can go, and now it's time to go beyond that. But I don't think that I have had that conversation with the county to see exactly where we agree and where we don't agree, and then go from there.
Thank you. Councilor Schuster.
Thank you. Joe, I agree with you both. Right now, what this looks like to the county is, we're not even going to come talk to you. We're going to get an attorney, we're going to make our rules, and whether you like it or not, here it is. And the first thing we should have done was contact the county, our county representatives, and said, we'd like to have a meeting over water. We'd like to know what you will allow us to talk about and what you say is out of bounds. Because that isn't going to cost us very much. We have people out there that, would they helping us in this? We've got some water people in here that are listening to what's going on, and I'm sure the state's taking a good look at us too. The state passed one law just because they said we were trying to go our 5-mile donut, and they limited us. So one law was passed specifically for Laramie, Wyoming, because they said we were trying to go out too far and enforce things. We're going about this the wrong way, and I will not support it.
Thank you. Further comments from council? Councilor Henry.
I do remember this council directing the city attorney to look into watershed protection ordinances. And so I believe that's what he's doing. And I believe that it may not be possible to sit at the table with the county. I believe that we have had several opportunities lately, and they don't cooperate.
Say that.
We don't cooperate with each other. We're having some difficulties. So I think it's time to get some ordinances out there, and I appreciate hiring professionals, so I'm going to vote yes for this.
Thank you. Let me share some information with council also. The city clerk informed me today that Commissioner Sullivan would like our joint meetings, whether we wanted to move forward with them or not. And Commissioner Sullivan informed our city clerk that, yes, he would like to continue them, and he'd like to have a discussion on aquifer protection. I met with Commissioner Sullivan today, discussed it. He was very encouraging as far as meeting on aquifer protection, and I told him that I would get back with him after discussing it with council. And I just wanted to let you all know that that transpired today, actually. Other comments from council? Councilor Somerville.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would encourage everybody at the council to support this agreement for professional services for a couple of reasons. And the first being that there is some ambiguity and unclearness as to what state statute allows for water protection. I think that we need legal professional services to help determine what that is. And that's the first step in this mess. What are we legally allowed to do? What are our options? And I would agree that during this process that we need to bring the county in and we need to talk about them because they represent every person in this city as well. So this should be important and near and dear to their hearts as well. And I expect that there will be conversations and cooperation, but to me, what this agreement does tonight is just give us the professional legal services that we need to determine what the options are for the city as far as watershed protection. So that's why I'm supporting doing this. I'm not looking to start a fight. I'm not looking to, I'm not with a yes on this. I'm not saying that we're not going to work with the county at all. I want the legal professional services to determine what we can do, what we shouldn't be doing, and that's it.
Thank you. Other comments before I open it up to the public? Councilor, well, actually, I'd like to just hold it to one round right now and go to the public, and then if you'd like, we can go from there. Anyone from the public wish to address council at this time? Yes, Mr. Linford. And I would remind you that we do have a 5-minute time limit.
I can easily exceed that.
That's why I wanted to make sure that I reminded you of that. If you'd like to,
Mayor and council.
I can be very subtle and raise my hand or something so that I'm not interrupting you.
Yeah, is there a yellow light or something so if my oration's just getting started? Some of you probably know that 368 days ago, I was out working on our county property near a wellhead, an aquifer wellhead. And I discovered that there was a huge amount of poisonous chemicals. It smelled to high heaven, poured near our wellhead. Councilor Shumway remembers this. We called the Albany County Sheriff. He came out. We had no idea where it came from, and so the sheriff suggested we call the Environmental Protection Agency in Denver, and they came out. They said it was a federal crime area. Cutting to the chase, the perpetrators of this, it was a deliberate attempt to poison a well. The perpetrators, I will not mention their name, was a company that was doing work for the city of Laramie on the East Side Tank Project. There had been a little incident in which one of their workers was caught smoking dope on the property, and so he was fired because we were accused of being Mormons because we didn't want them smoking on our property in the high grass. The bottom line was that when we reported this, it turns out, if we need some legislation, that no one has ever been charged with a crime for poisoning a well in Wyoming. No one in Albany County. They have all over Wyoming. I don't know if Albany County is the only exception. What we need is get an attorneys together and make it a crime to deliberately poison a well. Now, the City of Laramie's contractor denied it. We are a little business in which we have video surveillance cameras. And so when the Wyoming Department of Environmental Quality came over and investigated, they nailed the city's contractor. The city lied about it. The city attorney tried to cover it up. It was ugly. It was a little over 10 years ago. Now, Councilor Shumway knows all about this. You need to be aware of the fact that it's not septic tanks you have to worry about. It's people who have a mean disposition and they want to hurt other people. Yesterday, I photographed 2 areas on our property where people from the city of Laramie had driven out into Albany County and had emptied the sewage from their multiple-purpose vehicles on our property so they wouldn't have to take it to a gas station. This happens all the time. Nobody gets prosecuted. The city of Laramie sends their citizens out, breaking into people's property, following the icons that the city was putting up, which led to this law being produced in Cheyenne. And what are we supposed to do? I could not call anybody in Albany County about, I don't want to use the 4-letter word associated with it, that was dumped on our property, but I took pictures of it. I don't think I have to make a sample of it, because from the pictures you can go and have it analyzed. My time is up, but I want you to understand that people that live in the county don't necessarily feel that they're getting a share shake from the citizens of this town. Thank you.
Thank you.
Were there any questions?
Mr. Hale.
I have some questions. Typically, they probably won't get answered, but this law firm, are they licensed to practice in Wyoming? Assuming there's, as it's pretty well indicated here, it's litigation's expected. I assume that litigation would take place in Wyoming as opposed to Colorado. Then it almost seems contradictory in this confidential memorandum that doesn't seem to be very confidential, because I certainly have a copy of it. It goes on to say that this law firm, Rodriguez, Dinkus, so forth, is eminently qualified to assist in this process. Then, in a fee agreement, the law firm is intended to be an expression of opinion only. Now, that doesn't seem like that's very eminently qualified. You know, you typically, when you solicit a lawyer, you expect to get legal advice, a legal opinion, which kind of goes beyond the scope of just an opinion, but that's not what it says. And it goes on here about, because we are not your general counsel, they do not involve undertaking, providing advice, assistance, representation for you, your interest in any other matter. Now, I'm not certain what matter is. If things are supposed to be specific to this water, groundwater deal, and you take the bull by the horns, then is the question posed by the same law firm regarding home rule. Is that part of the matter? Is that relevant to the matter? Is that not part of the matter? I mean, it goes on to say here, cooperate fully with the law firm in all matters relating to the matter and documents that may be relevant to the matter. This seems like kind of a lot of doublespeak. I think what you're doing is essentially signing a blank check. The other thing I think that's really disheartening is for the gravity that this whole thing can produce, all the litigation and so forth, I think it'd be important to postpone this right now and put this on a regular agenda, not a special meeting, and have this televised for the public so that they can see how egregious and the amount of money that this council is apparently willing to spend on a witch hunt for the county. And it's been stated that the city attorney was directed by the council to explore this ordinance. I'd like to know what specific meeting that was and who voted which way. And as Councilor Vitale had previously stated, you've got all these additional charges that aren't specified, computers and delivery and telephone and long distance and expert fees. I mean, we're talking thousands and thousands of dollars. You're not going to get an expert in here for $14 an hour. And then item J, litigation is not pending, but it's anticipated. You know, you're signing something. You're giving the approval for a firm that there's no incentive for them to minimize litigation or to try to compromise and so forth. And then, you know, taking the bull by the horns, I attended some of the interviews for the city attorney. And it would seem to me that here we have a city attorney that's had previous city attorney experience, and yet now, the first time we need an ordinance, he's incapable of it. And I'm thinking maybe what we ought to do is, rather than look for an outside attorney, is look for an attorney that is capable of this, if this is truly the direction you want to go. And the other thing is not knowing how much money is in store here. I mean, I think this could really be a bunch of money. And also repeating what Councilor Vitale had said, that, you know, budget crunches, will there be any money left over to give Janine another pay raise?
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the council on this subject? Yes, Ms. Starkey.
Kimberly Starkey, 2216 Skyview Lane. I don't expect an answer since this body never gives answers to the public, but perhaps an answer can be given to the Laramie Boomerang. I wonder what the impetus is for a watershed protection ordinance. Both the city and the county each have their own aquifer protection ordinances. The county's was adopted by DEQ. City's was not, of course, but the county's was, and that's where most of the land is that we're talking about. And it was just, I believe, in December that the city's consultant said, and it was in the newspaper, that Laramie has the best water quality in the state of Wyoming. So why in the world do we need another ordinance that goes out of your jurisdiction? And that has nothing to do with all the other issues that the previous speakers have brought up about litigation and costs. And I think it's irresponsible for the city council to engage in something at this point where you know you're going to have litigation. You wouldn't do that in your own life, would you? So anyway, I hope you give the Laramie Boomerang an official statement on what was the impetus, who is the driving force behind this desire to have a watershed protection ordinance.
Thank you. Would anyone else wish to speak? Yes.
I'm Terry Jones, 3918 Chinook Drive. When I read this in the newspaper, it was blatantly aggressive and the true speakings of a tyrant. And I've spoken to the council before about being and creating a tyrant within the city. This is exactly what I've talked about, because you are looking for a fight and you're being very aggressive about it. And by saying you're looking for litigation, you don't really care. Then you go out of state to hire a law firm when there's a time of budget crunches. That's also aggressive. And if you have to hire a law firm, you should be hiring a law firm within the state of Wyoming to support the people of Wyoming, not the people of Colorado. Shame on you for that. How many people have you laid off in the city so that you can help fund this project? A number, I know. You need to shut this down. You're out of line.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to address the council? All right, I'll go back to the council. We've heard quite a few comments, pretty much from anyone. Any further short comments from anyone? Councilor, I can't see your hand.
Mr. Mayor, I believe Councilor Shumway was going to speak at
Oh, did you?
last
You
time.
did.
But he's
Well,
already spoken once, and he
Yeah,
hasn't spoken at all.
I'll make some closing comments, but go ahead.
I have nothing, yeah. I have no comments.
Okay. If you'd like to make some very short closing comments, this would be the time.
Yeah, they'll be short. Again, I just want to meet with the county and the state and get that cleared up. I will say this, we do have great water, and I'm grateful for it. I know that there was a time when West Laramie had great water in the 1930s, and then all of a sudden they didn't. Flint, Michigan had good water once, didn't they, Joe?
Yes, they did.
And now they don't. But anyway, I think it's premature for us to go out and start, there's a few things that we need to get, and maybe we could do a fees not to exceed so that we can cover the real pertinent items that we need to get some basic discovery on, but I don't want to open it up to everything.
Thank you. Okay, Councilor Vitale, you've spoken for about 10 minutes. You've covered, if you've got something really brief to talk about, that would be fine, but
Mayor, if I may, we're meeting on a Thursday night.
Councilor
Which,
Vitale?
no, let me address something. You opened the door.
Councilor
Let me
Vitale, you're out
yes.
of order.
No, I'm not out of order. You're out of order.
Councilor Vitale, you're out of order. I'll say
You're
it one
out
more
of
time.
order.
All right, we're in recess until we get this straightened out.
5 minutes?
But he should be coming up pretty quick here. All right, we're back in session again. Councilor Vitale, if you can do it within 3 minutes, you have the floor.
Got the clock going? Start it.
Here, I'll do it.
Well, somebody needs to keep a clock on you, and I'm tired of your wise remarks.
She talked a lot more than I did, Mayor, on the last deal. You didn't chastise her.
Councilor Vitale, you've got 3 minutes.
Yeah, don't treat me like a kid, boy. Yeah, I'd like to make a motion to postpone this indefinitely until we have time to meet with the county and other resource people to see exactly what part of this we're going to need legal help on.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second for that motion? The motion dies for a lack of a second.
Not
All right,
surprising.
any further comments by council? City Clerk, could you do roll call, please?
This is on the main motion?
This is on the only motion we have on the floor, which is the main motion.
Somerville,
Yes.
Schuster,
No.
Shumway,
No?
Henry.
Yes.
Hanson, absent. Vitale.
No.
Weaver.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Polikis.
No,
That is 4 yeses and 4 noes, Your Honor.
so that
One
motion
absent.
dies. Okay, on to the next item, which is item number 2D. Councilor Schuster.
Thank you. I would like to open the floor to the community partners deliberation. All councilors have turned in a spreadsheet. They are now, should be passed out to us for final approval of that spreadsheet.
I don't have one.
Well, we need to have.
I think they're coming.
Dave has them right there.
Okay.
Do I have a second?
Thank you. There's a motion
I
by
think I said enough. I was hoping I did.
There's a motion by Councilor Schuster, there's a second by Councilor Weaver. Let's take a second to review these worksheets, and then I'll go to city staff.
Thank you. You're not even going to come and catch
This isn't in a digital format. I don't know what I'm doing.
In a digital format.
Yeah, I know. I know. Yeah, it's a number of drafts. See this?
It's kind of funny how close we all are.
You can get wailing around.
Sorry, I marked on yours. You want-
It's a big one. No, it's all.
That means it skewed all the numbers.
Well, we'll get it fixed.
Okay.
Nobody really left for our presentation.
All right, Ms. Reese?
Honorable Mayor, Council, we have Resolution 2016-25 before you to approve community partners allocations for fiscal year 2017. In addition, the bottom of the resolution, you'll see a recommended $5,000 allocation to Fire in the Sky. I believe the recommended amount for funding to be allocated to all outside agencies was $282,818. Looking at your total of your averages, it appears council got to a bottom line of above that amount. The total here is $288,925. Just leave me alone. So, yeah, please do.
Okay. The difference in the bottom line totals are, one counselor is over the amount that we recommended of 282,818. And, you know, we're willing, that's a council discussion. The $5,000 for Fire in the Sky, I'll note, it's our intention to work with one of the local radio stations and have them raise funds through advertising and things like that. We won't do that until it would be 17, not the 16 show, but for the one in July of 17, that would be our intention. So we would let that amount, it could grow beyond the 17,000 that we budgeted in the past, or, you know, if that fails, we can come back and have a discussion if we want to continue fireworks. I don't anticipate that failing, and as you discuss changes to this sheet, we can make them for you and bring it back. So.
Okay, thank you. Let me do this first. Councilor Vitale, was it an accident on your part, or were you aware that you went over what we agreed upon was to come to a sum of $282,818?
I guess, Mayor, when I'm looking at all this additional spending that's going on, and looking at all these agencies and the number of people in this community that need the help the most, and we're cutting their services, I don't feel that what I did was not prudent. I mean, this was a staff's recommendation, not a council. We never discussed all this stuff. They put this down here, and everybody jumped on it. I have a greater concern to provide as much as we can to these agencies that are providing services to the people in this community that need it the most. And so I don't think I'm out of line. Quite frankly, you know, that difference there is about $20,000 or whatever. That equals, you know, this council approved $224,000 for the fireman's contract, about $421,000 for the general city employees contract, and about another $30,000 for the increase for the city manager. Now, you say 30, well, there was $10,000 went into her retention fund, $9,000 went into her pension fund, and another $10,000 went into, so in light of all this excess spending, and then if you want to spend thousands of dollars on an attorney for a problem we don't have, I don't think I'm unjustified in trying to help the people in this community that elected me to protect and serve them. So I'm doing my due diligence, and I don't think I'm out of order.
So it was your intention to go with that amount? That was my question.
Yeah.
Thank you. I had some hands up. Councilor Shumway.
Your Honor, rather than go back and start over with everyone's recalculation, I think it's only fair to the council for us to at least put forward a motion that we all agree upon a certain number, and the number that I want to put forward is that we come to an amount of $282,818, not to exceed and not to be less than, so that we can move this money forward to these agencies.
Okay, so that would be in the form of an amendment to the motion. We have a motion on the floor, I believe.
The amendment.
So the amendment is no council shall exceed the amount of $282,818. Thank you. There's a second by Councilor Henry. Discussion on the amendment. Yes, Vice Mayor.
So maybe I'm getting my years mixed up, but didn't we do this already? Didn't we agree
No.
to this?
Okay, let me go back a little bit of history. Ever since I've been on council, we've had a process, and this process was discussed prior to the meeting. We can't officially agree upon it, but unofficially, we all felt that it was the best way to do things. It's been going on for 5 years since I've been on council, and it was going on for at least 3 years prior to me being on council. So this process that we've adopted is something that's happened for 8 years. Prior to this meeting, we had a work session where we discussed the same thing, and every councilor had an opportunity, if they objected or wanted to change the process, to speak. No one spoke at that time, so here we are today. I hope that answers your question.
Kinda, yes.
Thank you. Is there any further discussion on the amendment? Councilor let me make sure everyone else has an opportunity to speak, and then I'll recognize you. Councilor Vitale.
What meeting, I know we got these printouts, and there was a recommendation for a 10% decrease by staff that was put on here, and then we were going to discuss this tonight. I don't remember any formal meeting when this 282,818 was the bottom number, because on my worksheet, that wasn't implied. So.
Okay, I'm sorry if you misunderstood it. We did have a discussion on it during the work session with us.
But you can't make a decision during a work session.
There's never been a decision made on the amount, and there's never been a decision made on the amount for the past 8 years. It's been agreed upon that we'd follow a process. It's been a gentleman's agreement, if you will.
Better put ladies in there so you aren't discriminatory.
I was trying to figure out a word to be able to say that, and I don't have it yet. So a ladies' agreement, if you will, and gentleman's agreement. But here we are today, and Counselor Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think what we're talking about is at the work session, after the presentations from the various service agencies, we had a discussion to provide direction to staff to come up with a reduction given the state of the budget and the need to try to, unfortunately, find some areas to reduce spending. We directed staff to provide us with a document and a number that represented a 10% reduction from the last funding cycle for these agencies. Also included in that calculation was removing the crime victim witness total from 16 as they weren't requesting funding this year. So that's where the 10% and the 282.18 came from. It wasn't a vote, it was a direction to staff from council after a round of discussion following the presentation. So that's where that came from. And I think that's where the council wanted to try to go with working towards this 282.18. I don't know if that helps anybody, but that's the way I remember it.
I remember it the same.
Okay. So we have the motion on the floor, amendment on the floor, to use, for all counselors to use the number 282. From a logistics standpoint, I would suggest we could reduce Counselor Vitale's numbers percentage-wise equally on all of them to equal the 282.
I think Councilman Vitale should have the right to change his allocations. I don't think you should interfere with that. That's not been a past practice.
I think I was speaking.
I know you were, but you were going after me, singling me
Counselor
out
Vitale?
again. I'm out of order again. Jesus.
You are. You got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
When you approve this new thing, you can call the police and have me escorted out.
Counselor Weaver.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Jackasses.
Maybe to save some time on procedure, if Councilor Vitale is willing to rework his numbers to reach that, given the background and whatnot that we've just discussed over the last couple of minutes.
Vote on it first.
Well, let's not, we're starting to interrupt everybody, and it's just, we got a stated procedure here. So,
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, and I understand the interjection there, that's fine. But if we don't need to vote on that, and the councilor is willing simply to just rework his numbers to get to that total, we could take another brief recess, and I mean, there's not that many items on here, we could probably achieve that goal and then vote on a total. I just thought I'd throw that out there, and I appreciate the time, Mr. Mayor.
I think that's reasonable.
And that gives him the opportunity to work his own numbers.
Thank you.
Well,
Counselor Vitale, did you have something to say?
yeah, I'd like to make a motion to postpone this till Tuesday night.
City Manager, can I go with a motion to postpone on top? Yes, I can.
Except that, Mayor and Council, you do not have a meeting on Tuesday night. Let me look here. Wait.
Yeah, we do.
We do.
Yeah, we
We have a
do.
work session, but not
Okay.
a regular meeting.
No, it's regular meeting.
Regular meeting.
All right, okay.
Okay, so, there's been a
It's
motion made.
difficult to keep track.
What day is this? Thursday. Right, okay, thank you. Yes, you have a
Dave,
regular
I knew you'd
meeting
get a
Tuesday.
signal.
I
Here to help.
corrected. I'm sorry, Councilor Vitale.
There's been a motion to postpone until Tuesday night. Is there a second on that motion? Okay, I do
Can we
not.
discuss? Oh, there's not a second.
There's not a second.
Second.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry. I would second it to
I've-
postpone it to
I've
Tuesday
provided
night to
a
get us
second.
going.
All right, there's a second by
sorry.
Councilor Schuster. Discussion on the motion to postpone. Councilor Henry.
What would be beneficial in postponing? Would Councilor Vitale change his numbers in the meantime, or would we have the same discussion we are having now?
No, Councilman Vitale.
I'm
Counselor
asking the
Vitale.
mayor.
You've got to go through the mayor.
Well, Mayor, please.
I haven't recognized you yet, Councilor Vitale.
Jeez.
Thank you. Councilor Vitale.
Thank you. Councilman Vitale, you can convey this, please, would have the time to go through all of these agencies and look at the priority and look how to reduce his allocation to meet the needs of this council. And so Tuesday night, you would have corrected numbers that would satisfy taking away the services from the people that need it the most in this community, and then I You can vote on it.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
So, Counselor Vitale, would it be possible for you to come up with your numbers this evening?
No, I don't think it'd be fair.
We're going back and forth again. Let's try to work through the chair.
Yeah.
Counselor Vitale,
Yeah,
to the
there's a
question.
motion on the floor, and I don't think that's up. No, I don't think it'd be fair for me to have to sit here and try and determine that right now. Because I have notes on all these agencies, and some of them prioritized, and
This is what I'd like to suggest we do as a council. The amendment only codifies what we agreed upon at the work session. I think the amendment we should pass, and then I think we should take a motion to postpone at that time and allow Councilor Vitale to rework his numbers to come within that amount, is what I would suggest we would do. Is there any further discussion?
I'm sorry, I don't understand that. How can we pass it?
There's an amendment on the floor.
Okay,
Well,
so
first of
pass
all,
the amendment?
Excuse me, first of all, there's an amendment to postpone on the floor. Turn down the amendment to postpone on the floor. Go back to the amendment. The amendment is to codify what some people, or to codify what we all
Okay.
had agreed upon informally. Then take another motion to postpone, pass that to give Councilor Vitale the opportunity to rework the numbers before our next meeting. That's what I'm suggesting.
Mayor, I will withdraw my motion to postpone.
Thank you. So the amendment motion is on the floor right now. Is there any further discussion on the amendment motion? Yes,
I
Councilor
made the
Schuster.
amendment. Can I rectify my amendment that we accept the 8th and we will accept the 9th on Tuesday night of the next meeting to codify all of them? Would that be okay to adjust that amendment that way? He said no. Okay, I withdraw that statement.
Honorable Mayor and Councilor Schuster, I think you want to get those numbers in there to get the averages to be whatever they're going to be, because that average at the end could change. The 282, 818 will stay the same, but the
Yes.
award to individual entities could change.
Could change slightly.
Slightly, but it could
Okay.
change.
So let's vote on the amendment if there's no further comments on the amendment. And all the amendment does is
He withdrew
codify
his
the number.
amendment.
No, I'm talking about the amendment. The motion,
282.
the motion to postpone is withdrawn, so we're back to the amendment to the main motion. Councilor Henry?
That's what I was just clarifying.
Okay. So this is a vote on the amendment to the motion to codify the number at the 282, whatever it is.
818.
There we go. City Clerk, could you do roll call?
Shumway.
Yes.
Henry.
Yes.
Hanson absent. Schuster.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Vitale.
No.
Weaver.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Polikis.
Yes.
That is 7 yeses, 1 no, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Okay. Now, Councilor Vitale, if
I
you'd like
would
to
make a motion to postpone this until Tuesday night, which is March
15.
15th.
Thank you. Is there a
Second.
second on that? Second by Councilor Schuster. Discussion on the postponement. All right, the only thing I'd like to say about that is to allow staff to put all the numbers together and have a finalized copy from us. Those figures, Councilor Vitale, would have to be in by,
Whenever Councilor Vitale would like, I'll make it happen.
I'll
Okay.
try and get them in tomorrow afternoon.
that'd be great.
I can work with you tomorrow if you want. I'll have time in the afternoon.
Yeah. You'll be here?
Got no place else to be.
You're not going on spring break and ditching this place?
Nope.
Okay.
All right, further discussion on the postponement. City Clerk, would you do roll call, please?
Vitale.
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Shumway.
Yes.
Henry.
Yes.
Hanson absent. Pierce.
Yes.
Polikis.
Yes.
That is 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Item number 2E, Councilor Shumway.
I make a motion that we adjourn from the special meeting.
Second.
Motion and a second to adjourn by Councilor Schuster. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? We are adjourned.
Adjourned, then.